to this PSV Academy Startup Talk on data-driven sales. I was just going through the attendance list, and I must say that it's really great to see so many familiar names. And I'm really hoping to make those familiar faces later this year, but we'll see how that goes with the whole situation. Anyway, also a warm welcome to all of you who have not been to PSV Academy yet. I'm Louise, and I'm the program manager, and will also be the host and facilitator for today's talk. We've been doing these startup talks for about 3 years now, and it really started at the heart of PSV Ventures as a thought leadership initiative to kind of help you through all the different aspects of starting a tech business, right? So as investors, we have a lot of knowledge from all the startups that we've been working with over the past 20 years. But more importantly, we also have access to this amazing network of been there, done that founders, and who are willing to share with you this all this tacit knowledge that they have only because they have gone through it before. So that just kind of made a lot of sense for us to kind of combine those two things for the startup talks. I just have to say that here at PSV Ventures, the people here are just as passion driven as you guys. So we kind of cannot limit ourselves in this either. So what happened is that we're actually building a very ambitious academy around this now after we've experienced a lot of success with these startup talks. I must say that this year we have a lot of great things in pipeline, so make sure to stay close to us because there's going to be a lot of great stuff happening over the next months and over the next year or so. I just forgot here. Let me just slideshow here. Yeah, so that's me, the program manager, and I just want to give you guys a sneak peek at something we're working on right now. It's an overview of all the content that we actually already have now, but it's I think it's a great visual that shows you know, all the content that we already have available on our platform and on our YouTube channels and so forth. So if you feel that after today's talk that you want to explore these things more, go ahead. I mean, I will send the slides and the recordings to you afterwards, so you can study this overview in more detail and find maybe something that is also relevant for you to explore. So so we're building this right now, and so it's still a draft, but I still think it could provide you with some value. So today I can show you we're here on the go-to-market metro line, so to speak. And while we have already explored this topic a lot, as you see, there's a lot of dots here, I still think that there was room to explore something a little less strategic and a little less theoretical and more hands-on and what to do approaches kind of. So I felt that was missing a little bit in our content or in our program. So I'm very excited that you guys are here and want to hear about this as well. The reason why I want to talk a little bit more about sales, even though we've been talking about it for quite some time, is that it's just such a crucial aspect of your startup. For those of you who have not already gotten investment yet, this is an opportunity. Your sales growth is an opportunity to really show the potential in your pitches, right? And for those of you who have already gotten investment, this is an opportunity to show your stakeholders the future potential and also to just strongly position yourselves for the next investment round, right? So it's a very important aspect of the startup process. So I just want to show you, talk a little bit more about why we're talking about sales and not marketing, because we did host another startup talk that was more in the marketing department, marketing automation in that way. So this is just a recap from the last startup talk that we did, where we were talking about CRM data and how you should collect the things. And I just want to show you that in B2B marketing and sales, the sales part actually is a big part of the funnel. And that's why I feel that it's very, very important that we touch upon this, not just from a marketing perspective, but also from a sales perspective, because it's a very different process. Of course, we're also talking about the outbound and inbound sales, and which both Lucas and Nicolas today will talk a little bit more about that in a more pragmatic way today. So that was just to give you a kind of an overview that sales is a big part of B2B funnel. So that's why we're focusing on that today. And to give you the absolutely best, as I just said, then I've invited two really great guys. We have first up Lucas from Qubit, who will be shedding light on the outbound sales using a data-driven approach. And then afterwards, we'll say hi to Nicolas, who will take over the virtual stage and talk about how he works with it at 23. And then in the end, we'll do a Q&A session where you can ask us your most burning questions. And for those of you who've been to this before, you know the drill. But it works in that way that you have a Q&A tab at the bottom of your screen. And please just send us all your questions in that Q&A tab and not the chat function, but in the Q&A tab. And then we'll pick up the questions afterwards in the Q&A session. And I would really appreciate if you would also upvote your favorite ones, because that way I know which ones to prioritize when we get to the Q&A session. And also with me today, I have Alice, as you also see, and she is helping me in the chat. So if you have any technical questions or curiosities about Pre-Seed Ventures, feel free to get in contact with her directly. And last thing, if you feel after this session that you still have some questions or you have something that you want to dig a little bit deeper into, we do have an open door session coming up actually in a week. And the application deadline is today. So the open door session is where you get 30 minutes with one of our investment managers to talk about something that's just relevant for you. So it's a one-on-one talk online. So grab that opportunity if you feel the need as well. So I think that was just my quick intro. I think we're all ready to start the actual topic that we've been waiting for. So I think, Lucas, I will just stop screen sharing and then you can maybe share your screen.
Yep, will do.
All right.
All right, so first, thanks, Louisa, for the presentation. Maybe I'll just quickly introduce myself first. So my name is Lucas. I work as a team lead in the business development representative department at Qubit. And just so you know, Qubit, if you haven't heard about it, it's a B2B SaaS company. We are offering a virtual waiting room service, and it's been 10 years that we are in the business. And yeah, we have offices in the US. Our headquarters are, of course, in Copenhagen, and we recently opened an office in Oceania for Asian customers. So it's been 10 years, but we kept the startup vibes, and I think you guys can learn from some of the process that we've been through to collect our data from the sales funnel and how we're getting insights from there. So that's the topic for today. On the agenda, I'll first go through a quick introduction of the sales process at Qubit, how we built the departments that are composing the sales process, then some of the getting started, so some advice that I have for drafting some of the process for getting the data from your sales process. Yeah, some of the questions that you might want to ask yourself for starting. Then I have some of the examples that we have for business development, some of the metrics, some of the KPIs and dimensions that we are using. Finally, we'll go through some of the challenges that we have using the method that we currently have at Qubit. And then the next step will be a possible solution that we're still working on. So it's kind of a real life example because it's an ongoing process for us as well. So without further ado, let's basically get started. So just to introduce everyone to how the sales model look like at Qubit, we've been using a model that is presented in Aaron Ross' books, which is called Predictable Revenue. I don't know if some of you are familiar with this book, but it's a staple for B2B SaaS companies. And it's basically based on the idea that you should specialize your departments. So as you can see in the presentation, The first square, the outbound reps, which is at Qt, the business development representative department. We are in charge of qualifying the leads. So this department is doing the research and contacting of prospects, so people that would be interested in our solution at Qt, and creating leads that are feeding the account executive, which is the sales department in itself. And we also call them closers because their job is basically to get the conversation going with the prospect, have a demo, and make a contract sign. And once we have a signed contract and the client, they are then moving in the last bucket, which is customer success. Also, the role is to be farmers. Basically, the idea is to have them maintaining the relationship with the customers, making sure that everybody's happy, that they're using the software correctly, and they will keep on using it. You can also see that it's a double bidirectional arrow because we also use customer success for the implementation, and that's also during the demo and onboarding. And finally, the last part, which is the inbound leads. Technically, it's basically marketing activities. And they are feeding directly, the leads for marketing are feeding directly the sales team. In some organizations, it's a bit different where they're still going through the BDR department for qualification, but for us, we're asking enough content to make sure that these leads are actually highly qualified and therefore can go directly to the account executive. So that was just the introduction to make sure that everybody has this picture in mind, because we'll use it further down this presentation. All right, so first, before even starting putting some data together and creating tables and mixing CRM data, I think it's important to really focus on starting with a piece of paper that is blank and a pen rather than just an Excel file. And the idea is to draw or to start the thinking process on how you're going to use the data from your sales funnel. So here I have 44 points that can help us build that the whole process. So the first point is to identify your story. Basically, there are some of the questions that you should have for yourself. So what are you trying to explain by using the data that you have collected? I think this is already a topic that you've been through. So now that you have your data, what are you trying to do with it? What is the goal of using this data? Which data can you use together to make more sense? And here I put also some of the example. So for example, are you trying to find correlation? Are you trying to find a trend that can lead you into the right direction? Are you trying to find some outliers? So customers that you've signed, but you want to see more of them, and it was just a one-time scenario that you want to reproduce. Do you want to make comparison between markets or industries? So this first section is basically helping you to determine, why are you collecting the data and how can you actually use it, and draw some KPIs and measures. The second step is to know your audience. So as you've seen in the sales funnel, there's multiple departments, and basically some of the reports that you're building shouldn't go to all of these departments. So information about marketing are relevant for marketing, but not for customer success. So it's always important when you're driving your metrics to make sure that you are presenting them to the right person that will be able to make sense of it. Also consider what are the problems that your audience try to solve, and how can the data that you've been matching together can help them solve. And also the last point that I have on this one is, have they heard this story before? Basically, nobody really wants to hear the obvious, so always try to go a little bit deeper than just the first layer. The third point in this is to build a narrative. So we all know that data is important. We keep on repeating it. We love to track or pull the data into the CRM, but they don't present the whole truth. And that's why it's always important in the reporting that you have to bring some of the context or actors that might be influencing the sales data. So for example, in a global pandemic, a decrease in sales is not only because of the activities that you've been doing, but it's also the external factors that are influencing it. It could also be that you have a competitor, so other actors that are influencing the data points from your sales. If you have a competitor that is trying to beat you down in some of the industries that you are settled, then they will definitely change some of the metrics, and you might see a decrease in sales, and that's not necessarily due to the input that you have, but some of the external factors. And just as a general recommendation to build a narrative, it's always good to have a problem solution type of narrative, which make it easier for people to understand, okay, that was the issue and we're noticing this trend. So this is the actionable solution that we present for you. Finally, in this one, we have the right visualization. The idea here is that there is pretty much a misconception of using data. I think we all like to make some graphs and pie charts, and we all think it's good looking and it makes a nice presentation, but actually there's actual science behind it. So when doing visualization, it's always good to have some knowledge about it. So if you're doing a comparison, you should use different type of charts than if you're looking at the composition of a sample, or if you're trying to define the relationship between industry and segment, or if you want to look at the distribution. So here I put some example where you can see that comparison over an item or over time should have different graphs than the composition that is static or over time. And it's not just what is good looking, but there's actually science and knowledge behind it that should help you kind of show the truth with the data. Because using the wrong visualization can actually lead you to the wrong conclusion. So that's why it's very important. All right, moving on. On this one, I have some of the example of the metrics that we have for business development. So as I said, I'm a team lead in the business development metrics department, so that's why it makes more sense for me to present this. And here you can see three different views and a dimension. So the process that we started to implement is to have different views that are composed of metrics that have significance important for us. So for example, the funnel metrics is few metrics like email and calls, the number of replies that we get, the number of leads that we got from these replies, and number of opportunities, etc. That is representing the sales funnel as we've seen before. So where it was the business development department, the sales, and then customer success. Then the other view that is very important for us is the quantitative. So we always want to make sure that our team is sending a lot of information to our prospects. So how many hours have we spent on this campaign, or how many emails has contact received from us, and how many contacts have we contacted within a company. So some of these metrics are what we call quantitative, just to make sure that we have the right level of activity for our team. And finally, we have the qualitative metrics. So it's not all about sending as many emails or making as many calls as possible. It's also making sure that these activities are resulting into positive results. So when you have a CRM, it's quite easy usually to track if you have a good open rate, if your click rate is also increasing, the reply rates. You can also have your BDRs checking if the replies that they got are positive or negative, etc. So these are some of the metrics that we are looking at. And the idea is that we're comparing these metrics to the dimensions. And here are some examples. So dimension can be time. So how does these metrics are over the years, or over a month, or over weeks, or you can compare these metrics to, or these views to the different regions that you are working on. So for us, the main markets that we have are in Europe, Asia, and North America. So we're always comparing these three. Or the industries, we work on online retailers and ticketing and governments. Or you can have, depending on the use case, your campaign. And if you are a manager and you want to look at your team, you also want to compare these per individual. So for example, the business development representative, we want to see how they're performing over the sales funnel, in terms of quantity of outreach and the quality of the outreach. So here's an actual example of how it looks like. Here you have one of the dashboards that we're using, and you might see some numbers or data points, but these data are from 2019, and I put a bunch of filters so that the data itself is not really meaningful, but it's just so you can have an idea of how it looks, and it's just for the purpose of this presentation. So don't necessarily try to read the data points themselves, it's just for representation. But what you can see is that on this dashboard, you have the industries that we're comparing to some KPIs. And in that case, it's the quantitative metrics. So for example, we have first the retail industry, then the ticketing industry and the government industry. And we're comparing them per activity that we send, contacts per companies, and email sent per contact. And that type of dashboard can help us identify if there is market that we're doing less activity, and if we do, is there a reason why? Is there one of the metrics that is just going down over the month? And just to have a good outlook of per market, if there is some metrics that are going up and down, and try to make sure that we have it under our eye. And I actually have another example, and this time per market. So this time it's actually the sales funnel metrics per market. So I mentioned we have a couple of markets. And this one is a bit different, where we don't have it horizontally per market because there's just too many of them. But then we used a different visualization to be able to see per market how we're performing in terms of how much activity we're doing here, how many replies we got, and how many leads. So activity, reply, leads, it's kind of the beginning of the sales funnel for the BDR team. And for us, it's very important to check if these results are consistent over market, and if there is a market that is scoring higher reply rates, should we increase the activity on this market? All right, so moving on. You got already an idea of some of the metrics that we're using and kind of the process that we're doing for comparing the sales data and making sure that we have a consistent process. But maybe one of the problems that we have and challenges is that right now you've seen it for the business development representative team, but what does it say about the sales team or the customer success and marketing? And what it results in is that we have data points that are a bit spread out around the organization, and represented like this, where we have information in marketing that is solely staying in marketing, and some of the information in BDR are only in BDR, and same for sales and customer success. So this is creating what we call data silos. And the issue is that it creates blind spots. So for example, BDR can really look at the churn rates of their leads that is sitting in customer success, or this also makes it very difficult to compare between departments. So if our management want to see what is the churn rate of the BDR versus the BDR leads versus the churn rates of the marketing leads, we actually don't really have a clear way of doing it. So that's also an issue. The other challenges is that there's no uniform tools that we've been using. I think you can see that Microsoft Dynamics is kind of used across the board, but that doesn't mean, like, if the marketing data is not linked to it, then it's not something that we can use for all of our data. And finally, the other issue is that, as you can see, BDR are spending a lot of time in researching into their own data sets and trying to make sense of it. But on the first picture that I've shown in the sales funnel, it's based on specialization of the core. And the fact that BDR is trying to determine or to do some data analytics, it shouldn't be their specialization. Their specialization should be to contact and prospect companies that are interested. So it's not necessarily spending the right time or the right resource on the right task. And as a conclusion, we basically can't have a holistic view of the whole data process, and therefore driving business decisions such as investment is becoming more difficult. So what we kind of have as a solution of now, and that's something that it's work in progress. So it's only a possible solution. I'm not sure if this is the right solution, but that's what we're working on. Is to have a layer that is on top of these departments, and it would be the business intelligence department. The idea here is to have an independent department that would be working for the other departments. And it's important that it's independent, so it doesn't take side. For example, marketing, BDR, sales, and customer success, they all will have the most investment from the managers. So obviously they will try to present their data in the best way possible to get this investment. But if we have a top player that will be in charge of this, they will be a bit more neutral and therefore leading to the right decision. And finally, that's the last thing I have here. It's some of the benefits of having this model instead of the current model that we currently have. So having this top player will create a uniform, consistent process to handle all of the sales data. It's also making sure that we use the same platform across the board. So departments shouldn't have the say in which platform they should use for analyzing the data. There should be just another department making the best choice for that, and also to have some specialized skills and keep that specialization, which was the basis of the sales process or the distribution of the sales funnel, by having a business intelligence department that is core activity is to look into the data and making sure that every department is performing. And finally, the two last positive things with this new plan is to have a department that can have deeper and better insights. I wrote here that it's actionable insight because that's what we want. We kind of want to have someone that have the time to look into what we should do more of or less of. Is there a market that we should invest more on, or if there's a market that we should spend less of our time or attention or money in? And eventually the bottom line is to create more opportunities with having better insights. So that was basically what I have for today. This is kind of the real life example of how we started at Qubit and how we are looking towards the future. So I'm looking forward to some of the questions that you guys might have in the Q&A section. But I think Nicholas has something to present first. So I'll stop sharing from now.
All right. Thank you very much, Lucas. And as Lucas just said, if you have more questions, please just submit it in the Q&A, then we'll pick it up afterwards and try to answer your questions at the end. So Nicholas, would you please to take over the virtual stage?
You bet. Thank you so much for having me, Luis and Alice from Pre-Seed. Thank you for that presentation, Lucas. You just got probably one of the better courses in how to build up a BDR structure. And coming from a company like Qubit, I think you could definitely put some sound to it. I want to go over data in a more sort of probably in a simpler way. When I spoke to Lisa about this webinar, we really focused on sort of making it as you also mentioned earlier, pragmatic as possible, but also trying to make it as simple as possible and not keep it in like a holistic and strategical point of view, but actually as founders and as business development people, how can you go about using data to build up some sort of sales? I should probably just start out by introducing first of all 23. The company that I currently am in is a video company. We have several different video products. We have a core product where we measure data on video marketing called the Video Marketing Platform. We have a webinar product, much similar to the one we're in currently, but it's all about webinars and logging data on webinars as well to convert more clients or more stakeholders. And then finally, we have a video recording product, a browser-based recording product for recording small videos, spreading them out, and then seeing from data what is being seen and what is not being seen, again, in order to optimize your whole funnel. So everything we do from the very get-go is about data. We really started out this company because there wasn't enough data on video, and the whole approach for us has always been to the more data, the better. Myself, am a head of growth in 23. Started out last year to build up a department focusing on the SMB segment. I come from a past of being a founder myself, I have built up a company called Statum, a recruitment company for tech scale-ups, and also in this regard, and I'm also going to refer to it in this presentation, I've been working with data in all sorts of different approaches. It's not easy to get started with, so again, that's why I'm trying to make it as simple as possible. And actually, just to start out, I forgot to show you the who is slide, but anyway, we again, if there's one thing you should probably focus on in a webinar like this, and also what Luis is going to share with you afterwards, is I am responsible for startups here in 23. So we have a lot of like interesting opportunities for startups who really want to get started facilitating and using video data. And Luis is going to share more info on it afterwards. Second of all, data is relevant to do several things. First of all, data is relevant to understand a business. And when you want to understand a business, you need to start somewhere. I found this lame infographic somewhere on the internet, but it actually shows the perception of data quite well. Because you're being, as a founder especially, you're going to be, and especially when talking to people like Pre-Seed and other institutional investors, they're going to talk about everything related to how is your business put together, what is the data that proves that your business has some grounds to develop. Then you start digging, you start looking at your clients, what are they paying, and also the entirety of the metrics that Lucas just came up with. You know, how many people are talking to, how long are you talking to them, how interested are they in what you have to say, so on and so forth. All of this, and Lucas, he presented the very structured way. It took Qt ages, I'm betting it took Qt ages to get where they are today. They needed to find out what type of data metrics are actually relevant to sort of interpret what the clients are thinking of us, and what type of data is actually the right points or KPIs, so to say, to measure interest in our product or in our solution. What I'm saying with this is data is everything. Data is actually just, when you boil it down, data is just a piece of information. It can be a number in your annual report saying something about how you sold, but it can also be a client's date of birth. Everything is data points, and you need to figure out what is the right data for your business for the purpose that you want to use it for. And then, second of all, data is only as good as you make it, because we can sit, and Lucas was also alluding to this, it's not an entire truth in a data point. We tend to think that, you know, as soon as we can prove it on a data point, as soon as we can say that oh, this is in the data, this is a number, you can't argue with it. It might be true, but still, it's also just one data point. It's also just one point of view. So make sure to look all the way around and get the perspective on, okay, is this just a data we have kind of, from a cognitive bias standpoint, stared ourselves blind to, or is this actually the data point that we should follow? So yes, the fundamentals are, you're going to have a lot of data in your business. The first thing you need to find out is, what is the right data for my business? The second thing is, how do I structure it correctly for it to show the picture that I actually am looking for? To give you an example of how you can use data to understand a business, as I just said, 23 is, among other things, a webinar platform. And being a webinar platform, we obviously get a lot of data on how do companies out there actually run webinars. And this infographic is also made to kind of visualize, because we found it interesting that when we when people out there in the world host different webinars, what happens with those webinars? If you just go on as simple a thing as the weekdays, does that have anything to say about how successfully your webinar will perform? And disclaimer, it does, because what happens is, when you make your webinars at the start and at the end of the week, the perception of people is, well, people aren't joining webinars Mondays or Fridays because it's the start and the end. You know, people are either just coming back from the weekend or getting ready for it. Is not going to work, which also means that the top line you're seeing here with webinars hosted, this means that companies, where are they placing their webinars? The majority of webinars are placed Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And actually, we also happen to be on a Wednesday today with this webinar. It's not uncommon, as you can also see from this graphic, but when you start moving down in the metrics, you can see that the conversion rates of the webinars are actually roughly the same, spread out across all days. And more interestingly, the attendance rates of the webinars are actually higher on Mondays and Fridays, even though the vast majority are hosted in the middle of the week. So when I spoke about using data to understand, this is all about understanding a business. Like when we advise our clients to make webinars, we can obviously draw the data from any other client we have as an aggregate data point and say, when you host your webinars, don't rule out Mondays and Fridays to use them just because of your own assumption. It's simply not true. There are other reasons for people not coming to your webinar. The weekday probably isn't one of it. What you can also use data for, because this was just again an understanding approach to the whole thing, you can obviously also use data to convert, which is probably, as a founder, the most exciting part, because you can, I mean, we tend to think that we understand our business, and we can understand our business from many different angles, but a business is always much funner to understand if we have clients in it that are converted into it. So just to give you some direct insights into how we do it at 23, we also, as Lucas just presented, have a similar model as to how we approach the lead acquisition flow. This is what we call our BDR flow, but it could actually be anything, just to explain that, you know, this is how leads, when they come in, this is how we make sure that they are treated the right way and they convert nicely. In terms of terminology here, this is used on top of HubSpot. And for those of you who don't know HubSpot, it's one of the bigger CRM systems out there. If you really want to sort of fast forward your lead acquisition strategy and your whole data approach to client acquisition, HubSpot is obviously a great way to start out. You can also use any other CRM system, but this is just my way of saying, when you see the descriptions here, what they call life cycle stages, there's a base lead. I'm going to explain that in a second. A lead, they make more sense. MQL is short for a marketing qualified lead, and SQL is short for sales qualified lead. So to start somewhere, we start at the top of the funnel. We want to define ideal target profile. We want to add target accounts and want to add contacts. Lucas also explained this when he explained how you need to find out that you're actually targeting the right people and you have the right profiling in place to find the right contacts. That's a base lead. So you just decided that this client is somehow interesting. They have no insights into your business. They have no clue about who you are, or at least you don't know it. You just added them in because you find them interesting. It's a prospecting activity, and it could be, if you hosted an event such as this, for example, you can pull in the entire list of people from the event and say, okay, this is an interesting base lead list. And then as soon as you decided to do that, you want to make an initial contact, converting this lead or converting the base lead into a actual lead. You go from just having contact information to actually having a lead you can do something with. You can soft convert it either on marketing. Marketing can be anything from a newsletter, a webinar, a physical account-based marketing effort. It can be anything that you kind of expose a potential client to. Or you can do the basic thing, just reaching out, what we categorize as the BDR approach here. You don't necessarily get an answer for them, but you're with dropping that email in their inbox saying that you're interested in them, they must have seen at least that email, and now they know about you. From there on out, you could try to convert it to an MQL, the marketing qualified lead. Lead is engaged with our marketing content, or the conversation has started somehow in the engagement. HubSpot has a scoring system, and talking about data and so on, our scoring system, for example, like we're a video company, we do a lot of webinars. So if you've seen one of our webinars, that scores a lot on our data. If you have answered one of our emails, that also scores, then you're engaging with us. If you've had a demo meeting with us, that scores really high, because obviously then you know about our products, you've been proposed them, and so on. Again, if you're using HubSpot, if you're using a CRM system, you have to start scoring the data according to what is valuable to your business. So find out in your business what is actually valuable information to have passed on to a client, and then score the leads according to that. You can do that in a spreadsheet, or you can do it in a CRM. So marketing qualified lead is, they have seen some content, they're converting, they know about us and are communicating with us. Then if we are lucky, we can convert them to a sales qualified lead, meaning that they are we have a pre-qualification call arranged, or they have seen so much of our content or engaged so much with our content that the score is high enough to actually kind of make them mature to contact. That then converts into an opportunity, having the AE qualifying the lead and reaching out, what Lucas also called the closer. And then obviously at some point they either become a customer, or you abandon them, turning them into customer management or customer success management, but making them a new customer. I could talk for ages about converting and what works and what doesn't work, but the most important things here are, make sure what works for your clients in terms of what are they actually finding interesting, score them according to that, and then treat them accordingly. How do you get started with this? Because I just said you can use HubSpot. I also said you can use a spreadsheet. And again, actually trying to refer back to where I started. Back in my own company, we decided that because when building a recruitment company, it was really important for us to make sure that people felt something for who we were. Because when you buy a recruitment service, whether it being digital or not, you need to have some sort of faith in us understanding your business. And typically what we found out is the best way to sell is through networking. And when I say networking, it's such a messy word, because networking can be anything from going to coffee meetings and doing nothing, to actual structure networking, where you find out who are interesting people, how do I connect with them, and how do I make sure to convert their interest into something. So we started out building this back in the days when we had very little, we didn't have a CRM system. We didn't have any things at our disposal. We had Airtable, as this picture is showing. Airtable is a sort of spreadsheet on steroids. You can really build anything in there. It's a very manual tool, so you have to build everything yourself, but it also opens up for a lot of opportunity in terms of getting things done. We built out an entire network sheet of hundreds of different people that we wanted to get in touch with somehow. It could be investors, it could be companies, it could be anything. And then we noted on each and every individual, did anybody at our company know them? How did they know them? When did we last engage with them? How are they currently situated in terms of recruitment, and so on and so forth. As I just said, we found out what is relevant for us to know about people in order to convert them to clients, and how do we log that and react to it at the right point. So this is just my way of saying you don't have to have an expensive, big, fancy CRM system to get started. You don't even have to use Airtable. You can go on Google Sheets and start building things out just to get started on logging things down. Because at the end of the day, data is only just a simple piece of information that you try to tie to some sort of meaning. So try to lock down the information, finding out what works, and then reach out as according to the data that you actually find interesting. But that's it from me. The very low-down approach to using data in sales, and now I'm probably going to let Louisa have the word back.
All right. Thank you, Nicholas. That was really great. And personally, I really liked how you guys went from how we organize ourselves and our departments to also going down in how you work with it specifically. So I think that was a really great working together like that. So thank you for that. I think we will go over to the Q&A. We already have a lot of questions. And if you have more questions, now is the time to pop them in because we only have about 10 minutes to go through them. So let's start with a question for Lucas. What is your experience doing outbound to many contacts in the same company? Wouldn't that annoy them? What is your experience?
I think that's a very common question. I mean, who isn't annoyed, right, by receiving emails or calls from sales companies? So what we try to do is, of course, we have to send emails to the same person quite a few times. I think from companies to companies, there's some different KPIs. Some people think it's better to send up to 6 emails to one person in a go. And for us, it might be, it's actually a bit lower. But what we try to do, and I think what is very important, is that we make sure that the outreach is not just a MailChimp sending thousands of emails, the same email to everybody. That's why we have a pretty large team of business development representatives that are basically in charge of customizing almost all of the emails that we're sending out so that it feels like it's personalized. It's based on many of the information that we have to have in the CRM. So which industry they are on, what could be the use case for them, try to understand what is their actual technology stack and how we can add to it, trying to see if they even had issues in the past. So I think it really depends on what kind of outreach you're doing. And at Grid, we're focusing a lot on a qualitative outreach more than quantitative. That's definitely where we're going, where sending more emails has, for us, shown less results than spending more time on the research and making sure that the emails are super customized to the person that we're sending it to.
Okay. I just have a follow-up question on that because I'm just wondering how long do you actually work on a lead? Like, do you have some sort of like time frame? Okay, from we begin to take the first initiative we take to we actually closing or even dismissing a lead. Then how much time do you spend?
We have different targets, so we have different we segmentate or prospect depending on the importance. So just like Nicolas presented, you can have a score. For us, it's based on the campaign, and we have some specific projects where we have, for example, specific retailers that are in the it's in our top prospects. So that's really the one that we want. And on these companies, we are been spending years on trying to contact them because they're so big and they have tens of thousands of employees that it's not just one person. It's to make these companies have a decision on using Qt. It takes a lot of time. It takes to contact like more than 100 people consistently over years and try to make sure that we monitor when they're doing big releases, when they have issues, and contact them at the right time. Of course, not being annoying. So I don't have a clear answer, but it really depends on the segmentation that you have, your top prospect, your the prospect that you can spend maybe less time, and some that are just easy win that actually it's not even part of the BDR outreach. It's some of the companies that we're working in, BDR don't spend any time. It's just they're coming on their own because that's not worth really our money to spend on contacting these.
I think something that we've also been talking a little bit about before and during these startup talks is whether you should hunt the elephant or the mice, right? So, maybe you spend more time working the bigger leads, of course. I mean, that would be make more sense than going and spend a lot of time on somebody who doesn't have maybe 100 employees.
Yes. It depends on the stage of where you are for Qt. Now we're definitely chasing the elephant.
Yeah.
But at the beginning, we were also chasing the mice, and it just now we are at a stage where it doesn't really make sense. We have a base of customers, and we're just trying to get the bigger one.
Okay. And Nicolas, could you elaborate a little bit how you do it in 23? Like, how much time do you spend, and how do you maybe even qualify the decision maker when you go for a new lead or a new company?
The best way We found to qualify, like if we want to use data, the best way to qualify the decision maker is to use the current clients we have. So who was the decision maker historically, and how do we kind of duplicate that? In our case, it's always or almost always marketing people, being marketing executives such as CMOs, head of marketing, marketing lead, marketing operations lead, so on and so forth. So if we just look at our current clients, we can see that those are the people taking the decisions. When we then talk about prospecting, we always start from a sort of top-down mentality. We know that if we contact the CMO, if the CMO isn't the right person to talk to, they will definitely just point us on to whatever employee they have. Then we make sure that we're kind of riding the authority of getting divided out by the top manager. In my experience, no, it is not annoying to contact different stakeholders at the same time. It is all about the approach. Don't be an idiot, and don't be annoying when you do it. But if you do it from a value-driven standpoint, like trying to get a hold of different people to make sure that they actually heard your message, that is not annoying if you're professional about it.
Okay, thank you. So we have another question here from Mass, who is, how do you tackle cold outbound and GDPR? And I just wanted just to say that when you do an outbound sales, it's not about the GDPR, it's about the marketing rules and regulations, right? So, but Nicolas, could you elaborate a little bit about how do you actually reach out within the laws of marketing?
Yeah, it's a very important distinction you're making there, Luis, because outbound sales, outbound marketing has, it shouldn't have anything to do with GDPR. If it does, you're really doing something wrong, because we're into like very basic contact information that is very business oriented, and GDPR is mostly focused on storing personal information that can be vulnerable for the individual. As you're also saying, Luis, this is all about the marketing laws of, especially in Denmark, but it can also be international marketing laws of just contacting people without them knowing, and how did you get that information, and why, how are you contacting them? And there are different, you should make sure that you're acting according to this law. But basically, if you call up people, you can always do that. If you send them emails, do not send them offers or prices or anything. If you send anybody emails, it's just to get their interest. And when you do outreach, like from a just generally, make sure that you approach them in a very humble manner. You don't have to kind of just storm forward, because talking about being annoying, if you're contacting one or several stakeholders, it's just not going to work for you. And when answering also to your question, Luis, about how do we do it, we do a lot of email maturement. You could probably also see it from the funnel we just had, that, you know, we send out a lot of information about who we are. We find companies that we think are interesting, and then we make contact. A lot of you people having a founder title or a C-level title probably have gotten these emails from around the world trying to sell you software development solutions or whatever of the sort. It's the same. You can make people aware of your existence and then try to convert it. Emails convert horribly, but you can produce it in mass, and calls convert a lot better, and you get a chance to explain who you are and why you're contacting, and it's all within the boundaries of the law. Okay. So don't worry about that.
All right, cool, thank you. And Lucas, maybe you could also explain a little bit how you do it in Qt. How do you, I mean, you're at a stage now where you're actually contacting the big elephants, right? So how do you actually get in contact with these big companies? What is your strategy, or how do you actually do it? What's your first steps in getting in contact?
Well, we know some of the information that we need to have to be able to make a meaningful contacting. So we use multiple solutions and extensions. So when I first joined Qt, it was still not at the stage that we are at right now, and a lot of the tools that we were using were just free tools, because that's what we had at hand, and it was working this way. So a lot of extension that you can find. or a website where you can find information about information that is important for us. So something like website traffic is important, and there's website that can give you an estimate of the website traffic. So these are how we would collect most of the info, put into CRM, and then we could basically rank which prospect were the most important and compose our email depending of these information as well. Yeah, was that kind of the question you wanted?
Yeah. I think that will do it. Cool. Well, I think time is about to be up. I just want to have a few words at the end. Also, Nicolas told you that I have something to share with you about 23, and that is just correctly. I just yeah, so just to wrap up, we have this open door opportunity. So if you feel you still have questions that were unanswered, we didn't go through all the Q&A questions, then feel free to apply for our open door session. The application deadline is today, so you need to hand it in right away if you want to be in this round for March 3rd. Otherwise, we'll have another open door session in April. I think it's April 7th. Also, the next startup talk will continue on this B2B sales metro line. We'll be talking a little bit about how to hire your first sales representative and what things you should look out for and be aware of when you do this. And that will also be really cool. We'll have Hakon from Capdesk joining us and talk about that. Then we also have a huge resource pool on our website, so go and check that out. And I just want to add to that if you want, I will send an email after this with the recording and the slides. And in this email, I will also give you the opportunity to have we have a partnership agreement with HubSpot, so that will give you up to 90% off their CRM system. So that's definitely, if you want to start out with a new CRM system, definitely check that out as well. And the same thing with 23, they're also been kind enough to help us, and I will also include that in the email, the offer that we have made with Nicolas. So definitely stay around, check out the email, and I hope to see you guys again the next time. So thank you for today, and see you again.